I'd like to welcome you to this last panel just after lunch. That's always a challenge to do something where people stay awake, but I think the subject is important and interesting that you will be able to follow even though it's right after lunch. My name is Eva Svoboda. I'm a research fellow at the Humanitarian Policy Group, and I have the pleasure to chair this panel. I'd like to briefly introduce the subject, and in fact, when I was preparing for this introduction, I thought I could give you some of the statistics. How many killed in the conflict in Syria or Iraq? How many displaced? How many refugees? And then I thought, quite often numbers obscure the individuals behind each number, and it doesn't do justice to what is happening in the Middle East. And so I thought I would tell you about an encounter that I had in Gaziantep last year, where I met a young Syrian medical student who told me that he hadn't actually finished his studies, but was performing quite sophisticated surgery simply because there were no doctors around. And he had to come to Gaziantep for a training, and it took him quite a while. I believe he was coming from Homs, and it took him several days, so a few hundred kilometers. In a normal kind of country, that would be, within a few hours, but it took him several days. He had to negotiate through various checkpoints belonging to various armed groups or the government, and it was quite challenging. And this is just an illustration how reality is today in Syria, but not only in Syria. It's the same in Iraq, it's the same in Yemen, and so while we'll be focusing on Syria, we'd like to also go a little bit beyond that and look at the region. I have the pleasure to introduce the panel. Pierre Boulet-Desbareau, Emergency Coordinator for MSF. Then to his right is Christof Johnen, Head of the International Cooperation Department at the German Red Cross. And to his right, Zedoun Alzoubi, CEO of the Union of Medical Relief and Healthcare Organizations. Each one of them will do a brief presentation. And even though the theme is failure, and there are plenty of failures in the Middle East, unfortunately, we'd also like to look at some of the opportunities, or shall I say, some of the solutions that were found to overcome these challenges. And the three panelists will speak to that. So, can I ask Christof to take the floor? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pleasure of being here. Do allow me 1 second to change to that. Okay, it's running. I'm going to just show a few pictures. Eva already mentioned, we will focus a little bit on Syria, so just few impressions from Syria, from the practical day-to-day humanitarian life in Syria. But of course, many of what I'm going to raise is valid for other countries in the Middle East and beyond the Middle East. If I raise the question, so what is different or not different operating in Syria from other contexts? And I would like to just address few points. These points are not comprehensive, but they might, in a way, trigger a little bit our discussion we will have further. One thing is certainly circling around this trias of access, and I think that is an issue for each and everyone working in Syria. Access goes along, at least in the understanding of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, very much with acceptance. And acceptance is clearly linked to security. So this trias, access, acceptance, security is certainly one thing. And what we do see in Syria is a culmination of that. This is not new to humanitarian actors, but we see a culmination. Second point is the overwhelming role and importance of local actors. And even that is not new to protracted crisis. At least from our perspective, this is definitely a new extent we see in Syria. If you see, for instance, what the volunteers of the Syrian Arab Red Crescent and the Palestine Red Crescent operating in Syria, they are assisting or supporting each and every month around 4.5 million people. The question around that is, how do we protect these volunteers? And in the course of the conflict or the crisis, more than 50 volunteers have been killed being in action or on duty. So local capacities do play the crucial role, and at the same time they are at risk. Another element of local capacities is certainly local authorities. Working in complex emergencies like Syria requires cooperation with local authorities. Local authorities are changing, and working with local authorities is sometimes a risk as well. So another element here. Third point is, I think we, and that is a bit maybe failure, not failure, but a challenge, we still do lack as humanitarians the real understanding, a solid understanding of the complexity of operating in urban settings. And urban settings is more just like population density, it's the complexity of urban systems. There are specific vulnerabilities of urban population, and there are a lot of interdependencies between the essential services. An attack on an electrical power station has direct influence on healthcare, on water supply, on sewage systems, so on and so forth. And that brings me basically to another point. What we see in Syria is a systemic and continuous violation of international humanitarian law, combined with disrespect and violation for the fundamental principles, not only of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, but of humanitarian work as such. And we see really there that facilities protected under IHL, like health facilities and other supply facilities, water facilities, are attacked systematically, and that in an extent and in a quality that is pretty new to the humanitarian world. I mentioned already the working in urban settings, where we still lack really solid understanding. Combine that with a protracted crisis, and the challenges get even bigger. And basically, that's all to give an input, and I think that raises some of the questions that we are facing in Syria. But I would like to stress we neglect a little bit with the well-deserved focus on Syria, in particular Yemen, where a humanitarian crisis is ongoing, where violations of IHL are ongoing to an extent that is incredible. And so I hope from this discussion later on here we get some good advice, some good ideas on how to address that as humanitarians. Thank you very much.
Just a follow-up question, Christof. You said the safety of staff, of volunteers. Concretely, how can you work to ensure or mitigate the risks that they are exposed to?
I mean, one thing is clearly acceptance, and maybe you could see from some of the pictures, those volunteers, they are usually living in the communities where they are working, so they are known to the people. That increases acceptance. On the other side, that poses a challenge due to their position as being neutral. You can do very practical things in providing certain equipment that provides some protection for that. But I think it's more on the political level, and there we feel that has been neglected from political actors in that conflict to remind parties to the conflict of protecting humanitarian workers, because we can do that, but there are other politicians who should do that much more.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Well, failure, failure, failure. Since 2 days, I'm just hearing this word. What's wrong with you guys? It's not that bad. Well, it is too bad, but not that bad. So we can still have some hope. It's really strange that a Syrian is coming now to talk about hope, right? But we do have a lot of hope. I'm not talking today much about failure. I'm gonna talk more about opportunities. Syria is a very, very complex situation. You're talking about over than 250,000 people killed. You're talking about 83% of the people in need. You're talking about more than 10 million people displaced. Every hour in Syria, every hour since 2011, 50 families are displaced. Every hour. Just imagine. And because of the policies of the donors, now we are talking about the refugees in Germany instead of having talked about them while they were in Syria and to try to protect them there. Anyways, are there challenges? A lot. I can talk for hours about challenges, but let me talk more about opportunities. Mainly, I want to point out the opportunities of Syrian NGOs, international NGOs, partnerships. Do we have partnerships? Yes, we do, but we can do them far better. Right now, many Syrian organizations complain that the relationship between Syrian NGOs and INGOs is just like a master-slave relation. They are the guys who know, and we are the guys who don't know. Many feel so, not of course all, but this is a bit close to the truth. Now, I don't think we can talk about the Syrian context as we are the ones who do not know. We have our strengths, yes. We are newly born. We are only 4 years old. Syrian civil society. 4 years ago, the word Syrian civil society was a crime in Syria. Was a crime, committing a crime if you want to say that I am from civil society. And then we were born during the crisis and we had to respond. So we learned a lot over the 4 years and we have our strengths. INGOs have the same. They have their strengths, we have our strengths, they have their weaknesses, we have our weaknesses. Our weakness mainly, let's admit, we do not have really much of professional background. We learned what we learned during the war. INGOs are more educated, well aware, but we have access. We have access and we work on the ground. Only the guy here with the bird, you can see, he just 2 days came. Raise your hand, please, Abdelaziz. 2 days, he has arrived yesterday. He left Aleppo 3 days ago. You know what is Aleppo? Aleppo means a barrel, later on I'll tell you, a barrel bomb every 1 hour. From your city. So, we have access and we want to take the risk. It's very difficult for international NGOs to work inside Syria. We can work inside Syria. And we do work inside Syria and everywhere. So we have access, we have knowledge, we know geography, we know people, we know our need. Now you cannot say that these are your needs, Syrians, and go and do them. We know them very well. We need your support. We cannot reach to the donor community easily because we don't know how, frankly speaking. So do your job and we do our job, and then we have really effective partnership. So if we are adjusting our practices, then the main practice is real partnership between local organizations and international organizations. One challenge I want always to mention, which is the challenge of neutrality. We are always accused of, you guys, Syrians, are not really neutral. Well, are you INGOs neutral? May I ask you a question, please? Who is ready to operate in ISIS areas? Excuse me. You are supposed to be neutral. We are ready to work in every centimeter of Syria, no matter who controls that centimeter, the government, ISIS, whatever. We operate in ISIS areas, and we know how dangerous it is there. We don't have a website so far because we fear they see it. And we still work there. So we are neutral. Syria is the classic example of political versus humanitarian, the classic one. When we go to the donor community, we say we have 4.6 million people live in hard-to-reach areas. 4.6 million, for God's sake, they are hostages by ISIS. Can you please support us to support them? Uh-oh, no. There is a terrorist group. Yes, I know, but they suffered. They are under their occupation. We can't support them. How do we guarantee that this money is not going somewhere wrong? Well, I have to be more worried. I don't want to see myself wearing an orange suit in Guantanamo. So I'm really cautious about it. Still, we can't get really support for them. Neutrality means that Ghouta, which is a besieged area, since 2 years, it has got one single truck from UN OCHA. One single truck since 2014 and 2015. One single truck. 1% of the international aid came to Syria. 1% of that went to hard-to-reach areas and besieged areas. So where is neutrality? If we want to adjust practices, let us challenge. Let us challenge governments. And we say, listen, there are people. They want to have education. They want to have medicine. Let us tell them these people really need support. Have I taken too much time? Anyways, I have stories to tell, but to tell you something, I don't think we need to compete. There is no space for competition, for God's sake, at all. There are over than 80 million people in need in the world. I'm not talking about Syria only. Competition is one thing that is really, really harming everyone. Competition over what, for God's sake? Human beings' lives? This is not possible. To tell you just a small example, a very big NGO in Turkey, we invited them because we succeeded to bring one expert from Europe to train us on something called mental health gap or whatever. That big NGO tried to hire my staff inside our training by giving them double the salary I can give. I invited you. I cannot name, but this is just an example of how competition could be really, really bad. I'm not taking too much time because I have already taken. Thank you very much, and thanks for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Zedoun. Actually, you had...
No, like I said. Don't worry. It's sure not to.
You actually had time left, so, but... a follow-up question. You say you're prepared to work in areas that are under the control of a group like Islamic State. Now, on the one hand, you've got international humanitarian law that says, you know, you have to negotiate with everybody, with all parties to the conflict. When you try to bring that message across, that you need to negotiate with those who are controlling territory, how do you do that? What kind of arguments do you use to convince those who are not convinced that it's important to work in these areas?
Well, first of all, we really do not negotiate directly with any terrorist group, although we have to, and we can possibly, but we use mediators to negotiate with them, and this to calm the other side, that, listen, we don't talk to them directly. And frankly speaking, as a medical organization, we are insisting in ISIS areas on serving children and women, gynecology and pediatrics. We are doing that, first of all, because the people in need in Syria mainly are women and children. And second, to distance ourselves from trauma services that could be associated with some terrorist group and serving some terrorist group. I'm not saying that this is the correct practice, in fact. In fact, no. I should be giving support to anyone who needs it. I cannot judge people when they need to be, saved. But this is the mechanism we use. Despite that, Eva, despite that, it's not always successful. Even to women and children. In ISIS areas, mainly we serve, we have primary health care that 75% are visited by children and women. Just to give you a small hint, we have 2 clinics in Raqqa that ceased because ISIS did not want us to continue. Hopefully we can do right now. 2 physicians, 2 doctors receive daily more than 300 patients. Now, what type, what quality you can provide. But this tells you about the need there. This tells you how much people are in need inside there, inside these areas. And we cannot punish them twice. Once because there is ISIS controlling them, and second because we cannot provide services there.
Sorry, there was a little small technical problems because I'm going to show you some videos. My name is Pierre, and I work for as an emergency coordinator for MSF since a long time now. And my role is to actually within MSF to develop, to open, move, close emergency programs in quite difficult situation, mainly in the MENA region. And so I was invited to talk, and thank you very much for the invitation, on MSF in Syria, and to highlight the main challenges we are facing there. Sorry, I need to go from the beginning. Yes, so each time I wanted to explain to you how we operate in a quite complex situation and try to see if there was difference in Syria. Actually, not really in terms of working, it's more in terms of thinking. The way we operate, normally the way I fit or I try to open missions or programs, I always try to fit to or to set three rules. One is you should not try to replicate past interventions. Every single emergency is unique, has its own specificities, and you have to stick on those specificities. The rule number two is, besides that, you have to be ready to expose yourself to risks, to expose yourself to criticism, to incidents, and there is no way you will act differently, you will work differently if you don't expose yourself. And the last rule, the third one, is more we try to always balance the risk and the impact. So we are ready, and I'm ready to take some risk. If there is no impact or little impact behind, it's not worth it. When you have a look on the main the ongoing big, complex, unprecedented crisis MSF is facing today, Ebola, for sure, now it's getting better, hopefully. But the way we face the emergency in Ebola in West Africa, we had to think completely differently to readapt all our approach and to be able to, at the end, treat 2/3 of the patients during the peak of the epidemics. When you have the look on the migrants as well, last March, the direction of operation came to me saying, we need a boat, we need to rescue people at sea. It's major, it's unprecedented, we need to do something. I never did that before. So we had to sit with the doctors and to see, okay, what do we do, how we do it. So definitely when you want to operate in this kind of context, you have to change your mentality. And for Syria, now I'm 5 minutes to explain to you how we operate differently, why, and ultimately as well at the end to share with you, to debate with you on the challenges. The starting point for that is to consider the main characteristic of Syria, of the Syrian crisis. I tried to think hard for some times now, how can I describe these specificities of Syria? And the main one is, I've never seen, and for me it's I've never seen so systematic and targets of civilians, of wounded patients, and all on those who will try to assist them. So you can name it like you want: war crimes, crimes against humanity, systematic and repeated violation against international humanitarian law. You can name it as you want. At the end, the result is the same. You have you have a target or deliberate, indiscriminate bombing, shelling mainly on populated zones, on schools, on markets, on mosques, on playgrounds recently, and a hospital. So, considering this, you have no choice at the end to go for clandestine operations, for hiding operations. And this is the choice we made 4 years ago when we decided to go and to target the most affected population. And so for us, the choice we made was quite difficult because we never did, we never supported hospitals in besieged area before. So we had to understand, to connect with the medical networks and to talk with them and to see how we can support them. And at the end, in 4 years of collaboration, we managed to actively participate to the development of underground medical networks that are today, let's say, covering the more than 100 hospitals every day, supporting them, sending materials, financial supports, technical supports, and the result today actually is quite, for me, it's quite amazing, knowing that from that, outside of that experience, MSF never worked like that, or hardly worked like this. So for us, clearly we made a priority regarding the context, and the priority is the population that are besieged, living in besieged areas, for two reasons. One is because they are highly populated. We're talking about East Ghouta. We try to estimate it's very difficult, between 750 or 900,000 people living there, highly populated and highly affected. East Ghouta last August was the bloodiest month ever since the beginning of the war. We talk about 4,000 wounded, 380 something killed people, 420 amputations, quick and dirty amputation. It was quite horrific. So this is why we chosen to tackle those areas. And to work on those areas and to work with the doctors who are trapped in those areas, we had to actually develop common grounds, operating grounds, and rules. The first one is actually to develop a trust-based collaboration and doctor to doctor. So 4 years ago when we arrived, we said, look, you are doctors, we are doctors, let's work together, and we are going to support you. And we need to trust each other to keep on working together. So we don't work with intermediaries. It's really a doctor-to-doctor organization and a collaboration. We don't have partnership. We work directly with the doctors, and it was like that from the beginning. So there's little reason to change. Then the second point we wanted to raise is to have common rules and principles, integrity, impartiality. And it's very interesting to debate maybe afterwards on impartiality, how the international community define impartiality and how you move forward on impartiality. Free access to care. So different rules, different principles we wanted to put on the table before we could collaborate with them. And then the last point we want to ensure was to say, look, it would be a bottom-up approach. So the doctors, the surgeons, the nurses, director of the hospitals who work in those besieged areas are the ones to define what they need, not the other way around. And so at the end, we try to adapt as much as we could the support we're providing. And yes, today, through the support, you have 130,000 people per month who get access to healthcare, maternity, delivery, etc. And if you compare to the direct projects we implemented in northern Syria with 6 hospitals, 3 PHCs, etc., in 1 year, the direct operation from MSF in northern Syria, we reached something like 140,000 beneficiaries, which means that it's the same figures that we reach in 1 month through support programs. So the impact is huge, actually. And this is why we want to invest more and to do more in those areas. Thank you very much. I skipped the challenges, maybe afterwards, but quickly, in terms of challenges, we faced two challenges regarding those programs. Yeah, we faced two main challenges. One was internal. It took some time, some years, actually, for MSF to consider this kind of operation valid. The main reason was they are not MSF doctors, they are not MSF patients. So I did answer like, do you want stamps? Do you want stamp on patients? Do you want MSF to put contract on the doctors in the hospitals? So the reluctance inside was quite high, and it took some time to actually to move forwards and invest more in this kind of support. And the second challenge we faced by developing this programs is more human. We are. How long, and it's a question I have to answer, how long are we going to be able to sustain medical support to doctors, surgeons, nurses when they are no more there? When after 4 years of working like here, exhausted capacity are going on, and tomorrow I'm wondering who we are going to support in Izguta, in Duma, or in Zabadani. It's a bit too late. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pierre. You touch upon something that I think at times is forgotten. It's the support to the doctors who provide the care. And I'd like to ask all three of you the question, how do you support the people you work with, the volunteers, the doctors who provide the assistance?
Well, just to give some figures, to tell about the situation of doctors. Aleppo City has, I guess, now 55 doctors serving around 300,000 people. The number of doctors in the opposition-controlled areas right now and ISIS-controlled areas is expected to be around 1,000, serving almost 8 million people. Opposition plus. Can you imagine the number? And then we asked them, we recorded, again to clarify, we recorded around 233 aerial attacks on hospitals by jet fighters, barrel bombs, on almost 183 health facilities. One gynecologist who works in Aleppo City, we asked her, do you want an increase in your salary? She said, no, I want an increase in my sleep hours. And yet we ask them all the time, please stay in Syria. Well, it's not that dangerous if you get bombed like 10 times a day. It's even better than getting bombed like 100 times a day. We ask them to stay. We try to give good salaries, but then again, when we want to give good salaries, this is for one simple reason, because their families have to stay in neighboring countries, Turkey, Jordan, so that they protect their families and they risk their lives and go inside Syria. Which means you have to give good salaries. Again, many donors are reluctant to give cash. They want to give you consumables, equipment, but not salaries. And then what we do is that mainly Syrians in the diaspora, some of them are here, in fact, do a great job in donating. Some great physicians in the diaspora, Syrian physicians, in fact, collect money from their own pocket to support doctors inside Syria. I'm not saying that there is no support from donors, but it's not enough. Recently, we are thinking of designing a program to support the doctors inside Syria psychologically. Now, what they see is not what they used to see before the crisis. I mean, a barrel bomb doesn't leave a body just like any injured body after a car accident. What they see is really becoming now really fierce, very difficult on them. So I think all of them have some problems. Any Syrian has a problem right now after what we see. So we try our best with all possibilities to support them. But in fact, most recent development is that we started to build hospitals under the ground. Now we have a couple of them that are really doing well in caves. We dig them like, some faces are a bit surprised. Yes, we got back like 10,000 years back. We are now digging under the ground because aerial attacks cannot really reach deep in the soil. That is the only thing we can do for them. We cannot stop them from leaving the country. I think 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, 7 people left Aleppo, 7 physicians left Aleppo. And when you say 7, you won't think that's a small number, but we know that it's only 60 we have there, then we have now 53 only, which is like 14% left in 1 week in one boat to Europe. And I keep telling the politicians and the donors and here in Europe, you guys pay the salary of a doctor inside Syria to keep him inside Syria. If you keep this doctor inside Syria, then many families will stay in Syria because they have medical service. But if you don't support this doctor inside Syria, he or she will leave to Europe, and then thousands of families will take the boat through Greece to Germany. And then we suffer off refugees. This is the result.
First, to really support what Zedoun is saying, I mean, the Red Cross and Red Crescent is certainly not working exclusively in the medical field, but working much more with volunteers, and that is an issue. I mean, these volunteers have to earn their living somehow. On the other hand, they should not do that for a living. So they get a very little compensation, but for all of them, it's, as with the doctors, I think it's not about money. I mean, none of these people is interested in earning money. What they want is that they can care for their families, either in the country or in the neighboring countries, nothing more. What we try to do is to provide some basic insurance schemes. We do have a fund for the families of the killed volunteers, to support the families at least, but in a way it's very limited. I mean, another little attempt to protect them is finding a smart combination of local volunteers and international presence. I mean, there are certain areas where there is no way for internationals going, but there are areas where some international presence does really provide some protection, and the other way around. And playing that in a way smartly, adaptive, is so far not really working well. I mean, more than 50 people killed says something, but it's one way of doing it.
How we support the doctors inside Ghouta or North Homs. Actually, it's a daily contact through Skype. When we can meet them, we do. But it's just trying to be there, to be beside, to work together on what would be the best support we can provide. And beside of that, when we can, because again, it's a dilemma when you operate clandestinely. It's you can't talk much. So when we can, we do public release, press release to describe the situation, trying to connect the journalists with the doctors inside for them to be interviewed and to describe the situation. The problem is, with the long run protracted conflicts, the international community is no more interested to actually to hear what happened in Syria, and so definitely there's something we try to think on how to actually better move the international community on what happened. And it's quite amazing to see, I don't know, for those who were there, for the Kunduz events. So the MSF hospital has been bombed by the Americans, by the US Army. The same day, the former MSF hospital, the hospital we built in Nakrad area, actually that has been taken over by UOSSM after the kidnapping of our 5 colleagues. The same day, this hospital has been bombed as well. Hopefully nobody has been damaged, but all the doors, windows has been blown away, and nobody talked about that. So clearly there's a problem, and the issue again is what I mentioned is if nobody talk about it, is because everybody's scared. Everybody who's working in Syria is scared to talk because you will be targeted as well. So the support we can provide on the long term to those doctors will be without any big change will be limited, definitely.
One last question from my side, and then I'd like to open the floor for questions. Pierre, you mentioned trust-based collaboration. The word trust, and Zedoun, you and I have talked about it quite a bit, the trust. Trust you build over time, but you don't have the time. How do you do that? And the question to all three of you, how do you build trust between organizations that wouldn't normally work together and don't have the time to build that trust?
Well, I don't think we don't have the time. It's been 4 years we work with them, so I think we did have time to build it. Trust from the beginning was to say, you're a doctor, we are doctors, so we trust you in terms of quality of services. We trust you on the impartiality principles. We trust you on the fact that you will try to work in extreme conditions, and we will not put any additional pressure on what you do. And let's be honest, the reason why we managed to not put too much pressure on the doctors, on the hospitals, is because we don't have any governmental donors to put the pressure. It's only private funds. So we do what we want to do. And so when they ask salaries, we provided salaries. When they ask for fuel, we provided fuel. We didn't have any government saying, hold on a sec, fuel, how are you going to do that? And so the trust is there, we build it, but you don't have blind trust. It takes time to build it. And again, I was talking about rules. Operating rules, and clearly when there is, so we have different networks to control what happened, to make sure, of course, that what we provide is arriving first, and then there's a good usage of what we give. But so you have to have a control system to build this trust. But at the end as well, in besieged areas, it's very clear. You have as well a self-control system that will put a lot of pressure on everybody who wants to divert the money or the goods, etc. It's quite amazing when you have a diversion of goods, you receive 20 or 60 tweets minutes saying, look what happened. But the big change as well, or the big point in terms of control and trust, was to go for large-scale support in besieged areas. So as I said, we are supporting 133 structures for the moment in besieged zones. Why large-scale? Because we receive some criticism on why do you support so many hospitals? And the reason is when we have pressure from armed groups, for instance, in the hospitals for lack of impartiality approach, we stop everything. So when you stop everything on 133 structures, it's helped the doctors actually to defend their impartiality. So in that sense, we developed the trust. And to finish on trust, as well, I remember at the very beginning, I think it was 2012, we sent a shipment to a location, and the shipment never arrived. It has been interrupted by the regime. Fine. And at the end, the hospital said, thank you very much, MSF. Look, the video, we received everything. And we said, well, hold on a sec. Why do you say thank you? You never received the cargo. And actually, they were scared to, if they were saying the truth, that we will stop the support to them. And we managed to tell them, no, if you tell us your difficulties, your challenges, your dirty things, we tried to work together on how to overpass that.
Yeah, on that trust, I think the role of internationals working for Red Cross and Red Crescent in Syria is very much to give the local people really the feeling we are there to support you and to take away certain burden from you, and that is very much in line with what Pierre just mentioned. I mean, sometimes from donors and others, it's sometimes absurd what they want to see, what they require, and I think that is really a role we can and have to play there. So really taking away that pressure and saying, we'll deal with that, we will explain, you don't have to care for that. Trust between internationals and nationals is in our case not the problem, as it's in a sense one organization, so we share some values. That is pretty easy. It is much more a challenge for the volunteers than on the ground, because they have to work with all parties to the conflict. And I mean, if you're talking of access to besieged areas, I mean, we are not working clandestine, so you have to talk to all and everyone tries to condition it. And that is creating major challenges for the volunteers and the staff there, and they are basically threatened all the time. And it's these threats get bigger and bigger, and this is resulting in many of the most capable people having to escape the country, and that is a bit of a big worry to us. I mean, you just don't enter that kind of operation and know how to do it. You build up experience, and I mean, there were some great people who had built up that experience, and I mean, all of them, they say, we are not that much afraid of the mortar shelling, the bombings, that all is something, but that is sometimes even not the worst. The worst are other threats from different people on a different level, and that forces people to leave, and that will, in the mid to long term, clearly hamper the ability to operate.
Well, we don't have the luxury not to trust. There is only a few of them left in Syria. So the trust for us is, I guess, easier than international, because we are inside Syria. We see them, we talk to them, we risk with them all what they see. So it's better to create this rapport between us and them. This doesn't mean that we don't face issues with so much tension on the ground in Syria. Yes, we do have some problems, but I think these are a bit negligible, I mean, considering the extreme, I mean, severe situation inside Syria. So I guess for us it's far easier because we are more in touch with them all the time, on a daily basis. Yeah.
I'd like to open the floor to questions or comments. Please be brief to give the possibility to as many people as possible. State your name, please, if you'd like, for whom you work or where you study. Yeah, we start with Dr. Abbas.
Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Abdulaziz, coming from Aleppo 2 days ago. Nice to see you here all. I'd like to say, first of all, our priority is now, apart from just consumables, medications, and salaries. We are pleading, but we are pleading brains. We need these brains to be back home. We need visa to go back to our country. We will never, ever leave our country. We don't like to be refugees anywhere in the world. And I will be back home after 2 days to build my country. Aleppo University will start next month. Medical school will start by January. The first exam for resident will be next February. We will build our country again. This is what we need. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I saw a question, the gentleman there. Maybe we take 2 or 3 at a time. The gentleman there, then the gentleman there. The lady all the way back there on the mountain.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Ayman Jundi from the charity Syria Relief in the UK and part of UOSSM. First of all, I wholeheartedly applaud all the immense work that UOSSM do, and I am humbled by the sacrifices that people like Dr. Abdulaziz are doing, and feel ashamed of how little we in the international community are supporting them. My question to the panel is, we hear a lot of figures being flouted about in terms of the contributions of the NGOs in supporting Syria. Is there a feeling, like I feel, that these figures are inflated or manipulated to please donors and you know, the international community generally, or are these figures genuine? Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for the nice presentations. Anas Al-Qasim, I'm a trauma surgeon. I go on missions with MSF and recently joined UOSSM as well. I would like to thank the few organizations left in besieged areas like MSF, SAMS, and UOSSM for the great job that they've been doing. My question for both Pierre and Zedoun. You mentioned, Pierre, that it is a unique situation. We have to adapt to it. And we have to take some risk, but we have to keep it, you know, at low levels so nobody would know exactly what we're doing, so we're going to protect our workers. But building tunnels in Ghouta to smuggle the medical supplies, and Zedoun building caves, you know, as hospitals like, you know, 1,500 years ago, how sustainable is this? Is that really a solution? Aren't you afraid that the medical relief worker is going to leave you because you're telling them you're going to smuggle the supplies in tunnels for years and years? This is not a one-week mission where I can do it and you can do it. Or Zedoun, you want to keep the patients and the surgeons and the nurses in a cave for years maybe, since Russia now is involved in all the political problems now, airstrikes became worse and worse. What do we do with this? Are we going to keep working secret?
Of NGOs supporting Syrians or Syrian organizations, and then the uniqueness, you know, how sustainable is that? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, no, these numbers are inflated. You hear about huge numbers going to support the Syrian people. So is the case, of course, in the Yemen and Somalia, I guess. Well, I guess, first of all, there is a huge overhead that is being really left out of the country. It's really good sometimes to convince many NGOs that five-star hotel is not always the right place to stay at. Why not, for example, go for 3-star hotel or 4-star hotel and then see how much money is spent over there. People, when you hear the numbers, people say, this organization gives money to this organization, which gives it to this organization, and then it goes to Syria. Now, this one claims 1 million beneficiaries, and the other one claims 1 million beneficiaries, which is the same money that went from A to B to C and then to the Syrian people. Now, when you read the figures, you will hear that there is 3 million that went inside Syria, when in fact it was only 1 million. But there is no real coordination to coordinate these figures. Now, for Anas, I don't know how we can talk about hope. No, of course it's not sustainable to keep people inside caves, I don't know for how long, but let's admit, Syria is not a humanitarian problem. It is not an earthquake, a volcano. Syria is a political crisis at the beginning. And if you want to solve Syrian issue, instead of sending food, bloody stupid food baskets inside Syria, in fact, go and solve the cause. And everybody can do that, if they are willing. Now, solve the cause, which is the war itself, which is the political crisis, and then you don't need so much time, effort, and money in saving people inside Syria, humanitarian basis. Believe me, we have around now 10, 12 million people left in Syria, half of the population only left in Syria. If this crisis will continue this way for another 2 years, there will be only 2-3 persons inside the country. Everybody will leave.
Yeah, on the how funding is channeled. I mean, maybe not a Syrian example, but an Iraq example. There was a case in a country in Europe where a governmental agency was given money to do programs in Iraq. They felt not being capable of doing that, so it was given to an NGO of that European country to implement that. They were felt not being experienced enough to work in Iraq, but they were part of a big NGO network. So they give it to one of their network partners. They again forwarded the money to Iraqi NGO, and the poor guys finally implemented the money. I have never seen really how much overheads were deducted and what happened, but it's something that happens quite frequently, not only in the Middle East, but the Middle East is, I think, a bit symptomatic for that. On sustainability, I mean, yeah, certainly this is no sustainable way of working, and that is what I tried to address in the beginning. I fully agree there is only a political solution to the crisis in Syria, in Yemen, and all the other countries. Still, what we have to prepare for is to provide humanitarian assistance. And there, I think, in the specific context, because I think we have entered into a vicious circle. I mean, it's going downward, 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 and that is where we as humanitarians maybe have for too long not really understood what it is working in context. I mean, like working in Aleppo in a highly complex system. I mean, it's a huge, big city with all, yeah, in a way, fancy infrastructure was once there, and once this is destroyed, and this is, I think, really something where, as humanitarians, we have to look into, and where we have to give up a bit the notion of we are working in an emergency and applying emergency approaches, but really have to look into using programming methods that are so far more used in what is called rehabilitation and development. And I think all this LRRD thing is not at all reflecting the reality we are seeing today. So that should be rethought.
Well, quickly, there is not much to say, but if we are going to keep that for a long time, it's the only choice. There is no other solution. And going through tunnels for Ghouta, for instance, there is no other choice. Gaza tunnels, I think it's been years they've been in place. It's not acceptable neither, but it's the only way to work. So indeed, until the moment you will have more or a change at a high level in terms of United Nations members who will consider that we need to change the approach in Syria, then maybe we will be able to access the most affected population and to work properly. But yes, we are obliged, forced to do that, and we are very proud of that.
Shall we take another round of?
Hello. Oh yeah, this works. My name is Vera Voss. I work for Diakonie Katastrophenhilfe. And I came back from Johnnen a couple of weeks ago, and one of the main things we discussed at the working groups were chronic diseases. And I mean, there are numbers saying about half the people that have died in Syria have not died because of trauma injuries or war-related injuries, but because chronic diseases couldn't be treated properly or regularly. So my question would be, how do you meet these challenges, and how do you cope with chronic diseases? Thank you.
My name is Magda Kandil. I spent the last year working on a Syria partnership program for a major INGO, so I really enjoyed Zedoun's dichotomy between master and a slave, and INGOs and Syrian INGOs. So my question is, in the context of what you have said, do you really feel that we need the INGOs in the whole sort of system, and do we really need the middlemen? Are you guys able to work directly with donors?
Hello, hi, I'm Lena Fulmer. I'm a student of international law. This question is mainly to Mr. Johnen, I think. As far as I'm aware, the ICRC cooperates very much with the local SARC, so the Syrian Arab Red Crescent and other local Red Cross organizations, which, as far as I understand, are connected to the government either by funding or by certain political implications. And so I was wondering whether that impacts the ability to provide impartial aid and potentially also the trust that you can receive from the donors, since it seems as if the SARC is connected to the Assad regime. Yeah.
Thank you. So one question on chronic disease, how do you tackle those? Then do we need the middlewoman? Mostly men, but anyway. And then SARC.
Maybe I can start with the chronic disease questions. First of all, I will raise a point, is to say you have strange figures going on cause of death or morbidity, and this is why one of our job as well with the doctors inside the besieged areas is to define a proper way of data collection. Medical data collection and incidents information as well. So precisely to at the end come, because we treat something like between 60 and 80 reports, medical reports every month. Then you can see clearly the trend. And the trend in besieged zones, for instance, is it will depend of the situation. So when there is no heavy bombing, indeed you will have half of the people will die of violent death. And it will include 25% of civilians. When I say that, it's we can raise 40 or 60% of civilians, women and children, that will be killed during heavy bombing. So MiG attack, double tap attacks, chlorine attack, etc. So definitely there's a big part of violent death in the area we're covering. The other side is indeed the other cause of death is either acute disease. Chronic disease is a big part. It's 30-35% in our statistics, and death related to lack of food or proper water. So yes, we indeed provide a whole panel of equipment and molecules and drugs that will include chronic disease, definitely. And for the other question on the middleman, I don't know, because we don't have middlemen, so we work like UOSSM directly, and we see the consequences of local NGOs and diasporas having the pressure of international organization and not being able sometimes to provide what they want on the time they want and with the consistency they want. And I do believe, yeah, there's a huge problem on this chain of command from donors to international organization to local organization to doctors. And when you ask some question, I mean the question to big donors, we don't rely on them, but and they told me, yeah, we can't treat all the requests from local donors or diasporas. There are too many. I mean, if you hire people to have more contracts, to sign more contracts, I think you can do it. No, the main reason, sometimes not really shared, is, as you said, is we don't trust them. They are impartial. They're not impartial. They're not neutral. And then my answer on that is to say, look, but I don't understand, because when I open a hospital in Akarat, for instance, then 80% of the MSF staff is Syrian. So of course they are not neutral. Of course they are not impartial. And I remember during mass influx of wounded people in the triage zones, when you have to put on black zone. So the black zone is the zone where you don't want to take time to try to save the life of the people. Otherwise you will lose a lot of other wounded. When in the black zone, you have your kids, your parents, your neighbor. It's humanly speaking, you want to help them first. You can't do that differently. So you go and you work on impartiality and on medical ethics. But definitely within even MSF hospitals, we fight to go for impartiality and neutrality, and it's very difficult. So yeah. If there's not a big change of mentality, definitely this chain of operating will be maintained.
Yeah, just for two things. First of all, for the chronic diseases, I mean, the numbers say that 2013, the mortality death rate in Syria was around 3.8. End of 2014, it's 6.5, I guess, which means almost double. This is not because of the war, in fact, the the casualties of the war directly. In fact, this is the silent death in Syria. That is the real result of full failure in the medical system in Syria. Now people die from all types of diseases. You think vaccination is a huge issue. The answer, what we do, is that we started to think differently now. No more, we don't focus much on relief now. We focus more on development. Although it's war, it's very difficult to do development during the war, but we don't have any other option. So now every one of us is focusing on rebuilding the system, rebuilding the medical system through supporting the governance structures there. Civil society is trying now to support the directorates of health, try to give them capacity building money, whatever, so that we have someone to really have strategic planning. Of course, we will not succeed very fast, and it will take us surely decades. But at least we started. Now with the middleman, no, we don't need any more. I agree. When the Syrian civil society started, we were ignorant. I didn't know what is the term civil society until, the revolution or the uprising started in Syria. But now I think we matured enough, at least many of us. Okay, not all of us maybe, yes, but many of us, some of us if you want. But so far, I don't think there is a single Syrian organization, and I'm pretty sure, that has, stepped over this, multiple stages. But we are fully ready, we have matured, we have very good human resources, very good M&E, very good finance management. Now we are not like before. So yes, we are ready. Christof, it's yours. No, not at all, it's not possible. I'm sorry. No ECHO, no USAID, no DFID. Some small governments do, but yeah, but no, even Germany doesn't give directly. It's through GIZ, which is understandable. But if you talk about, for example, USAID, it's not possible that we get money from USAID or from DFID or from ECHO. We need always an INGO that looks after us. These guys are doing well, so we can take money for them.
Okay, then. I will try to respond a bit to the question on cooperation, ICRC, SARC, and the Red Cross and Red Crescent. Maybe just to distinguish. Certainly, ICRC has its own mandate in any country or in any conflict in the world. That is one thing. The next thing is that each and every national Red Cross or Red Crescent society, so the Syrian Arab Red Crescent or the SARC, does have its own mandate in its own country. And precondition for the recognition of any national Red Cross or Red Crescent society is that it is, in a way, accepted by ICRC and by the national government. And the conditions say it has to be auxiliary to the public authorities in the humanitarian field. That means SARC cannot take any side and say, no, we are not working with the government. On the other hand, SARC has to follow the 7 principles, so independence is one thing. That goes for Syrian Arab Red Crescent as it goes for German Red Cross, American Red Cross, British Red Cross, Colombian Red Cross, whoever. Certainly, this is a little bit more complex and challenging in Syria compared to a situation in Germany. Still, ICRC is, for very good reasons, working with SARC as SARC does have access, no one else has. And Dr. Al-Aziz said he recognized many pictures from Aleppo in that. And you might have seen on some of the pictures, there were some guys with yellow vests in between the Red Crescent volunteers. And these were, for instance, guys from the local water authority. And I mean, without those guys, you can't do anything if you want to maintain water systems. And that is a bit maybe what Zedoun already mentioned. I mean, you simply have to work with them. These authorities, these local authorities are changing over time. I mean, in some areas that were once government controlled, they are now opposition controlled. You have to work with them. So, saying SARC is government is, I mean, a national society is never government or non-government. A national society has always to define its way and its role in a very complex setting. And that is one of the reasons, I think, why there are, and increasingly more and more threats to the Red Crescent there, because they do not take sides. They act as humanitarians should act, impartial and neutral. Certainly there is misconduct, that is clear. I mean, that is in any country. The Syrian Red Crescent is, in a way, a reflection or a mirror of the Syrian society, as the German Red Cross is a mirror of the German society. And with that we have to deal. That is one of the strengths and weaknesses at the same time of voluntary services as lived in the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement.
Maybe on that point, indeed is very complex and very complicated. The fight is, and we are actually in contact many times with the delegation of RCRC in Damascus, because we are on the two sides, and so now we try to collaborate when it comes to negotiate for evacuation of civilians or wounded. We try, huh? It doesn't mean that we succeed, and the picture is not black and white. But indeed, one of the issues from Damascus is this rough control, strict control, or restriction imposed by the government of Syria to access some besieged zones. And let's be clear, when the UN United Nations named that inaccessible or hard to reach, we are now challenging them, saying no, it's not inaccessible or hard to reach. It looks like you can't reach those populations because it's training. No, it's non-authorized or it's highly restricted, and it's imposed by a government. And so one of the issue and the frustration you have from the Damascus part or organization who works from Damascus is not being able to raise this high control of the humanitarian assistance or diversion of the humanitarian assistance. Huh? So there's a big silence on what on the game going on in Syria. Many millions came from big donors in Damascus. And the point I wanted to raise as well is that from the opposition sides, when you make or try to make the calculation of the damages, you clearly see the asymmetry of the war between the number of people killed, tortured, jailed in opposition side and in the regime side. So because many times I was questioned on yeah, but as well, for us, it's the same. You are not partial. You are not impartial. You are embedded with the Syrian doctors, and so when you want to talk, the messages you want to transmit are not really neutral. And the answer is we have two good reasons to work only on opposition side. One is the government of Syria refused MSF to come and work from their side, like ISIS actually. If we don't work in ISIS anymore area, it's because they refuse to do that, to let us go. And so yeah, they refuse to have MSF working there, and the vast majority of the needs are in the opposition. Let's be very clear. When I talked about targeting of civilians and schools and playgrounds by airplane, we know where it comes from. So, those are the two main reasons why actually we work on one side only, but in close collaboration when we can with the Red Cross, because the Red Cross is a large movement, and some are indeed quite embedded with the government. Some are trying to do their best, and there is no black and white picture.
Yeah, just compliment that. I mean, the pictures you saw from SAC in Duma. I mean, this is not people going in there to provide assistance. This is people living there all the time. And the challenge is really to get access to bring in supplies. That is the challenge then to ICRC, to the SAC colleagues outside of that. That is the real challenge. But I mean, and this is in the Ghouta, this is in Homs, this is in Aleppo. This is really the challenge, but the people are in there. And I think that is something that we have to support them really, and not only materially, but really, I mean, paying recognition to what they are doing there.
Two more questions, and then I'll let all of you think about your final words of wisdom. Yes, that lady there, and then up there, the lady.
Hi, my name's Valerie Polidor, and my questions concerns our title, Novel Approaches to Complex Challenges. In this context we are talking about. So up to now we didn't hear very much about the novel approaches, so I would really very much like to know what you wish for. What do you think would be a novel approach that has to be implemented in the next month, years, well, in the future? Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name is Annelise Palacios. I'm a humanitarian worker and also an international liaison. We have been talking about what is the situation abroad, but we already have a lot of refugees here, the Syrian refugees here in Berlin. So I wonder, what are your suggestions for us as individuals here to support them, and then meanwhile, that situation is developing and trying to be improved. When it's time that they go back to their country, fortunately, we hope so, then what we are, from your point of view, we should be doing here.
Novel approaches.
I start. I try to explain the new approach of MSF in Syria and how actually we managed to reach people that are considered that by the international humanitarian community as inaccessible. So definitely one of the pressure or leverage I try to enforce in the humanitarian community is to say it's feasible, it's possible to help. If you really want, if you really change your approach, it's feasible. And giving the example of MSF, for instance, I think there's a way of evolution in front of many organizations. It was interesting because we were asked by a big donor, I will not name the big donor, to explain to them how we work in Syria, and then. They try to influence they try to change their own system with the partners to have the partners coming and working in besieged areas as well. But it was just impossible. We were talking about the chain of finance. One of the reasons is because when you say to a donor, watch out, I'm going to buy most of the drugs in Damascus on the black markets. I'm going to, so don't ask 3 quotation, don't ask names, etc. They are all fake names because they are targeting. So when you ask people or organizations or donors to change their approach, they want to work in the besieged area, but they can't change their approach. So the novel, a new way of working for me is there. Connect to the medical networks and put your action before your own administration constraints, and then we talk. And this is the main problem today, and for Syria tomorrow will be this one. And I do believe that the whole system is completely blocked because most of the humanitarian organizations are sticking to, or try to stick to, principles of humanitarian action, actually created by Johnen a long time ago. You have 3 golden rules. One is a wounded person is neutral, and only a neutral organization can rescue this person. Second rule is, if I remember well, it should be, at this time they didn't talk about professional organization, but permanent organization. So it should be a permanent organization who will rescue, provide medical assistance to the wounded people. And you can't improvise yourself globally as a rescuer. And the third rule stated by Johnen was to say, in any case, in the middle of the chaos of a war, you should always have access to the wounded people and to negotiate this access and to extract them. And the point is, in Syria, none of those points are applying. Doctors are not neutral. They are not professional or humanitarian organization. They are doctors, and they try to save the people. And there is no way today to negotiate the access, and we can clearly see it in Syria, to extract, to evacuate our little capacity to negotiate the evacuation of wounded people. So as soon as the international humanitarian community don't realize that if you really want to reach the most affected people, you have to change your approach and to a bit take your approach out of the box for the future, I don't see any big or significant change.
Yeah, when negotiating access in Syria, for access to besieged areas, it's tough, but you can negotiate food, you can somehow negotiate water supply, you can negotiate non-food items. As soon as it comes to medical equipment, medical consumables, there is a blockage. This is very clear because medical aid is perceived as, in a way, supporting your enemy, and you don't do that. So that's, I think, is for all organizations working there, one of the challenges. The novel approaches, I mean, maybe not really novel, but I mean, putting really more focus on local structure, and be it whatever, I mean, the way MSF is doing it, the way UOSSM is doing it, the way we are doing it, and recognizing, I mean, that they are not implementing. I mean, we never had that model, but that is still very much the notion. They are implementing, they are not implementing. I mean, we have to see, they have to define, and that was highlighted by Zedoun and others, they have to say what they need, how to run the operation, and we have to adapt that and accept that. So, and I think that is, in a way, it's odd that it's novel, but that is, in a way, novel. The other thing is, Zedoun mentioned as well, changing from traditional emergency mode to a more development mode, while continuing with emergency mode. I mean, what MSF is doing is clear emergency mode, but at the same time, I mean, that is what I said, this vicious circle, systems are deteriorating. So if you want to avoid a major public health risk, you have to look into water systems, and you don't do that by water trucking, what you have to do in certain areas, but in restoring or, let's say, initiating new systems. Let me give you an example. Damascus always had a water supply system that was not maintained once the central supply system was there. What the Red Cross, Red Crescent has been doing, rehabilitating this old system to have a backup system. And that was done in cooperation with authority, because you can't do that without proper mapping. You need to have plans. So you invest in that. But that is a very different approach, working on infrastructure. And I think that is something that did not start in Syria, but became really obvious as a crucial need in Syria.
Well, I don't know about much novel approaches. We woke up to find ourselves in Syria, and that is the crisis, so we don't have really much experience from the world. But I can give you just one issue. UOSSM, our organization, operates in almost 2/3 of the country. We operate in 3 regions. One is controlled by ISIS, one is controlled by Syrian opposition, and the third is Kurdish areas. To do so means you are supporting the victims in areas where the factions are fighting with each other. ISIS is fighting with the Kurds and with the opposition. The opposition sometimes have some problems with the Kurdish and so on. Now, how can we do that? We do that simply by being really low profile. We act just silently. The UN once asked us to provide them with lots of pictures from our projects inside Syria, and we said, sorry, we can't give you much, especially from these 2 areas, mainly the Kurdish and the... They said, why? You must be, hungry for visibility. We said, we are not hungry for visibility. We are hungry to support. So to do so, we had to stay low profile until now. I don't know for how long, because we are suffering on the other side. When you are very much low profile, then donors don't see you again. So we are stuck in between, but we could manage, and we can hold the stick from the middle. I don't know for how long we're going to succeed in negotiating with all parties in Syria. And we're trying to find always a mediator with ISIS, with the Kurds, with the opposition. And we are trying also to reach out to the government areas, and we tried a lot to bridge with SARC. But SARC is a bit cautious from dealing with us, which is understandable because they are under the control of the government and they suffer what we suffer from ISIS. So this is what we do. I don't know how novel is that, but works okay for so far.
Thank you. We're running out of time. I'm aware, Annelies, I apologize we couldn't answer your question, but I'm sure you'll find plenty of people with whom you could discuss. Please join me in thanking the panelists. Thank you for sharing your experience. I think it was a stark reminder how the reality of conflict is, how difficult it is, how challenging it is, but also the possibilities there are if there is a will and if there is a will to try to achieve it. So thank you very much.